I'll declare the meeting open at 6:32. Could you please stand for the opening prayer, which tonight was to be read by Reverend Brian Rensford, but will be read by Reverend Mark Beatson. I know Brian is recovering from a hip replacement from the... so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's pray. Father God, we hold up to you the Cumberland community whom this meeting serves. May the real issues of the people be heard, and may the needs of the city be addressed. Pray that all business discussed tonight is focused on creating social connectivity and multicultural equality. Thank you, God, for your love of all people, and may the Cumberland area be a safe place that promotes family and social harmony. We pray, God, for this meeting and for the councillors. May councillors represent their constituents with guile and passion, but always treating each other with respect and integrity. Thanks for our councillors' commitment and their desire to contribute in this way to the community. We therefore also pray for their families who support them. May they be blessed with peace and goodwill. Give thanks, God, for all people in and out of the chamber that contribute to these meetings. We also pray for others serving this community, such as emergency and care service people and private businesses. Pray for the elderly and the less fortunate in our community. And we give thanks for events like the Sleep Out for Homeless Youths and the range of programs for the elderly and disabled. May these groups, along with our children, be always on the Chamber's mind and agenda. Finally, Lord God, we pray that your Holy Spirit dwells in this meeting and throughout the hearts of all your people. Make the people of Cumberland one body where we work, live, give for the benefit and welfare of all its people. And the Cumberland precinct set examples to other councils of being a united group where building the image of this city as a friendly and safe place to live remains the strongest call. Thank you, God, for Jesus, who showed us how to love through kindness, humility and grace, and we ask all this in his name. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Darug people, and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. Please remain standing for the national anthem. Thank you, councillors. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Mr. Acting General Manager.
Good evening. Please be advised that the open session of this council meeting will be recorded and streamed live on council's website. This recording will also be archived and be made available on council's website. Whilst all care will be taken to maintain the privacy of the public gallery, members of the public may be recorded. Council requests that all members of the public are respectful and use appropriate language.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I have had correspondence from one of our regular residents from the chamber, and as the General Manager stated, members of the public must ensure that the speech to councillors is respectful and use of appropriate language. I would ask that if the councillors could try and maintain a similar, especially regarding not using any personal reflections. Oh, sorry, Councillor Garrard, just there was a written request from some of the previous meetings. A regular at the council chambers had written to me, and as quoted by the General Manager, that members of the public must ensure that the speech to the council is respectful and use appropriate language. She would suggest that that was also extended to the councillors. Well, some might find, but I'm just relaying the message, Councillor Sarkis. Thank you. Apologies. I do have a notice from Councillor Saha that was sent both to the General Manager and myself seeking leave of absence from council meetings, briefings and other council business from the 28th of May till Sunday. Moved Councillor Rami, seconded Councillor Sarkis. All those in... he's actually attending to an illness in the family in overseas.
Mr Mayor, that the council send a get well card or note with perhaps some flowers or something just from council to his father.
All right, thank you. We'll see what we can do. Sorry. Yeah, and thank you. I got moved Councillor Rami, seconded Councillor Sarkis for the granting a leave of absence. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. I have an apology from Councillor Addy. Is there a... Moved Councillor Zareka, seconded Councillor Zeta. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Council confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 16th of May. Moved Councillor Elmore. Seconded Councillor Campbell. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Council, I have a mayoral minute. It's a bit lengthy, but I will read it, even though it has been published. I am pleased to announce that Cumberland Council has been awarded as the winner of the 2018 Major Event of the Year Award for the Sydney Cherry Blossom Festival at the 2018 Parks and Leisure Australia New South Wales Award of Excellence. Parks and Leisure Australia is the peak industry association for professionals working in the parks and leisure sector in Australia, representing over 2,500 members. Each year, the Parks and Leisure Australia acknowledges excellence in its industry through its prestigious awards of excellence. The annual awards recognise outstanding initiatives and innovations efforts of people behind the places which promote enhanced opportunities for good use of leisure time for a number of social and environmental and economic benefits to the community. The Sydney Cherry Blossom Festival is now New South Wales' largest horticultural festival, held annually in the Auburn Botanic Gardens, and in 2017 the festival achieved a record 50% growth, attracting over 90,000 visitors. The event is now a major tourism driver for the Cumberland area, with 70% of the visitors travelling to the festival from outside the council area. The event connects local residents and visitors to the changing of the seasons at the Auburn Botanical Gardens. The festival also allows council to connect with a broad range of audiences through the event's different thematic days, including Kids Day, Seniors Day, social media friendly days, gardening days, plus a mix of food and entertainment offerings. The festival has now started to generate income that is being reinvested back into the Auburn Botanic Gardens. The delivery of the festival in 2017 was supported by over 50 council staff and involved strong collaboration across 5 council departments. The council staff worked tirelessly to produce and deliver our most successful Sydney Cherry Blossom Festival yet. This award demonstrates the great work that Cumberland Council is doing and the wonderful events in our parklands that we are delivering to our community. I so move this mayoral minute. And yes, any further discussion? I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Council, I have no notices for public speakers and I have no speakers for general items. So I'll move to items by exception. Council, item CO6/18-98, the draft compliments and complaints management policy has been withdrawn, so it is no longer on the agenda. The other items I believe will have to be discussed is item 102, the request to waive bank guarantee for 1 to 5 Dunmore Street, Wentworthville, the finalisation of the planning proposal for Jellabaloo Parade, Auburn, and the notice of motion on the Granville Train Disaster Memorial. Those three items will have to be discussed. Is there any other items that the council wishes to discuss?
I would flag a conflict of interest with the notice of motion. As it's the last item on the business paper, I would probably just depart the chamber from that point forward.
It's rather convenient, Councillor Grove. Fair comment. So I'll take it you'll hand up the appropriate form. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Grove. Are there any other declarations of interest? Sorry, it was remiss of me. No other declarations of interest? Okay.
CO6/18-100, it has to do with all of us, but it's
I believe that's
covered by.
It's correct.
There you go.
Yep. So if there's no items other than those ones I've read out, so item.
Councillor Elmore.
Oh, Councillor Elmore.
Mr Mayor, I raised this with you earlier.
Oh, you did, and I believe you're talking about the asbestos policy.
On page 171, if council decides to put that through.
Just
through
deleting the reference to Parramatta Sun.
Yeah, as you're aware, Parramatta Sun.
No longer exists.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, with that amendment. Okay. So.
Has anything been pulled out from the?
Yeah, well, no, nothing apart from the three that I have.
But I'd like to pull out CO6/18-106.
106.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, if there are any others? Okay, so item 97, the adoption of the related party disclosure policies. Item 99, the amended council expenses and facilities policy. Item 100, the mayor and councillors remuneration 2018/19. Item 101, the establishment of a panel of conduct reviewers. Item 104, the adoption of the asbestos policy with that amendment. Yep, 105, thank you. 105, the report on submissions received for companion animals and advisory committee. If that's the case, can I have a mover that those be? I got Councillor Elmore and then Councillor Wong, second. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Council, I'll just sort myself out so I know where we're going. Council, item 102, request of waiver bank guarantee for a second periodic payment of development contributions regarding 1 to 5 Dunmore Street, Wentworthville, page 123. I'm waiting for council to.
No, I'm saying other speakers here.
No. Moved it. I've got Councillor Garrard, has moved, and I've got Councillor Zeta has seconded. Further discussion? There's no speakers, then I've got...
Going to speak in favour of the resolution? And that's all you're going to say, Councillor Garrett?
I'll speak against it.
Councillor Christian?
Well, I think this sets a dangerous precedent for council if we go down the road of waiving bank guarantees. Not so long ago, there was a representative, a gentleman from St Vincent de Paul, and he wanted an exemption on an S94 contribution. And council and those that sit opposite me denied that and were against that. And there's no difference in the case here. Once we do this, we are exposing council to endless requests. On top of that, one has to worry that when a developer that's going to put up units cannot put up a bank guarantee, how those units, what happens if the whole thing goes belly up? But if we're going to go down the road of knocking back, of accepting, my apologies, a non-bank guarantee, exempting people from doing that, but we won't exempt Vinnies from putting up affordable housing developments, well then those on the other side have clearly displayed that they are just there for the pro-developer and not there for council's interest at all. So I think this is a very dangerous precedent and we can't do that.
Councillor Elmore?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll speak against the recommendation as well. My fiduciary duty is to the people of Cumberland. I support local jobs, and I support making Cumberland a better place, particularly Wentworthville. Wentworthville's a little run down, so it needs some revitalisation. But as I said, I'm risk averse as far as council's money. If this proceeds and the development is given a occupational certificate by a private certifier, council is not aware of that. So when that happens, the property owner, the developer can unsell that to somebody else without any knowledge, when the council without any knowledge about the 94 contribution being paid. So if that happens, council's got to chase the new owner, and the new owner probably doesn't know anything about that, so they're going to be very, very reluctant to pay it. So my attitude is, if when a development application is lodged, the person making that development application knows the rules. The rules are pretty clear. So if you want to defer the Section 94 contribution, you need to produce a bank guarantee. If the business owner that's developing this property, if they haven't got enough cash flow to produce a bank guarantee, they probably shouldn't be developing.
I've got Councillor Hammond and then Councillor Sarkis. Councillor Hammond.
I again will speak against this. For me, it's I can't quite see the benefit for our residents. I can't see the benefit for our council, and I can't fathom how somebody who is building 55 units, millions upon millions of dollars in value, can't afford $300,000. I just cannot fathom that. My biggest concern is what happens if they go bust. $300,000 can go a long way in this community. It was only last week that we talked about libraries and footpaths and litter and pools, to mention a few. And so therefore, I find it really disturbing that we would be prepared to risk $300,000 at absolutely no benefit to our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. Councillor Sarkis.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd speak against the motion as well. When I read this report, I thought of the St Vinny's example that Councillor Christo brought up, incidentally. There is no benefit to this community, but more importantly, Mr Mayor, if this was a request from the onset of this development, I would have considered entertaining with conditions in the DA that said that, you know, there'd be interest payable on the amount, so it's not just the same amount, because when it's put into council, we obviously earn interest on that and work that money for the benefit of the community. Number two, it would be in the conditions of consent. If this developer was to sell this site now, he could quite simply say to whoever is purchasing the site, oh, here's Section 94s, it's paid, blah, 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 here's the approvals, without handing over the subsequent approval. So this, to me, provides an avenue for somebody who's there to play the system, to actually play the system. I'm not here to give anybody that opportunity. I'm here to ensure, first and foremost, that this council and its people, its residents, are looked after, and we do that via these funds. So I cannot support the mover of this motion with this motion, and I don't think that the council as a whole should be supporting this motion. We should be setting a precedence, and I believe we already set that precedence when we knocked the last one on the head. There's no reason now for us to veer off that track that we've laid. We've laid the track. Let's roll on that track.
Thank you, Councillor Sarkis. Councillor Lake.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Listening to Councillor Sarkis, although I agree with the tenor of his comments, I think there are distinctions to be drawn between the last development and this particular one. The last one, you recall, was a development that was exclusively affordable housing, and I think there's some policy priorities for affordable housing in our area that just doesn't apply here. This, at the moment, this particular block of land, it sits next to the Wentworthville Library. It's a big hole right now. You can look right down. It's quite an extraordinarily deep hole. And around the fence is a big banner, Bobcore Real Estate, advertising units for sale off the plan, and that's been up there for about 12 months now. So I'm not sure how difficult it would be for this particular developer to find a bank guarantee for $300,000. But it seems to me that Wentworthville's in a state at the moment where we shouldn't be giving these sorts of concessions. Only last week, the Department of Planning put through its gateway decision in relation to the whole Wentworthville revitalisation project, and this block of land falls within that gateway decision. One of the things, one of the conditions on this rather unusual determination report is that council will now be required to update what's now called the Section 711, but the Section 94 Development Contribution Plan to align with the future growth demands of Wentworthville. And you'll recall that Wentworthville's now a priority precinct under the state government planning process. And the gateway decision says, as part of this process, it's expected that local and state infrastructure requirements will be identified and funding provisions confirmed. That's not just for local, but also for state. And one of the conditions in this gateway decision is that the council is to ensure that satisfactory arrangements are proposed for contributions to designated state public infrastructure. So all of a sudden now, the onus is going to be on council to make arrangements with developers who want to develop in this precinct to give contribution not only for local government infrastructure but also for state government infrastructure. We're in no position to be giving those concessions in Wentworthville. Quite the opposite. We are being squeezed by the state government, and I think we've got to be very cautious at this point.
Councillor Lake. I've got Councillor Zareka, then Councillor Zeta, then Councillor Grove. Councillor Zareka.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Without being conscious of the time, the game starts at 8 o'clock, and without duplicating everybody's comments, I actually agree with Councillor Christou's and Councillor Lake's comments. A bank guarantee is effectively money, so cash that's deposited on account, and a bank issues a letter saying, if these guys default, we will pay that money to you. So in essence, we're not actually getting this money. All it is a piece of paper from the bank that says, you are guaranteed this money if this guy defaults. If this this developer's having issues getting that sort of letter of credit, okay, he's got some serious problems as a developer. And given what the statements you've just made, Councillor Lake, that there's a big hole in the ground, it's not looking like a rosy future for this developer. So I think, in my opinion, council should take what they can get at the moment before the property gets passed on. So I won't be siding with the proposal, with the recommendation, with the motion by Councillor Garrow.
Thank you, Councillor Zareka. Councillor Zeta?
Mr Mayor, I think one of the biggest issues that I can see my fellow councillors have got is potential security about being paid. I'll mention a couple of things that were put forward. The St Vincent's proposal that was put forward to us previously, I believe, staff can confirm this, was for a total exemption to the Section 94 contributions. It wasn't a deferral. There's a big distinction between not paying anything at all and deferring the Section 94 contribution until completion. So let's not try and compare those two proposals together. They're totally different.
Councillor Christian?
I could be mistaken, but I believe our recollection was we did discuss, first it was brought up as a total deferral, and then it was brought up that a deferral until the units were sold, and both, I might be corrected, but I recall slightly different.
The current situation with that, just for clarification to the chamber, is... Okay, well, I'm just for the councillors' information, the resolution of council which was adopted, it was that the Section 94 would be payable on occupation certificate being issued, but a bank guarantee is still required.
Thank you.
By the
The original request by the applicant was for total exemption.
Exactly.
That's correct, Councillor Zeta.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to clarify that for the chamber. Thank you, Councillor Zeta.
That's fine. Subject to legal advice, what I would like to put forward is potentially, if we're trying to protect ourselves from not being paid, I'd like to get some legal advice in terms of whether we can place a caveat on the premises which would actually prohibit the actual developer from being able to sell the properties without us releasing the caveat. So in that respect, if we were to put that caveat on there, that would potentially protect us from them being able to on-sell those properties without us getting paid our Section 94 contributions. And just to put one additional item forward, if the deferral does go through, the actual Section 94 contribution will be actually increased by inflation on a year-to-year basis until it's paid. So it won't be the original amount that's currently outstanding, but it will be the amount plus inflation, which is generally at the moment about 2 or 3%. That's actually in excess of what we're currently getting on our term deposits at the present time. So potentially council will be receiving an amount in excess of what the current Section 94 contributions are, being whatever the inflation rate is on a year-to-year basis, which, like I said, is actually in excess of what we're currently getting on our term deposits. So I'd like to put forward possibly to the mover I suppose the request that he may consider seeking legal advice for us to be able to place a caveat on the actual property, which will provide us with security against the potential sale of those premises to third parties. And if that is the case, and the legal advice comes back as being positive and does allow us to place those caveats on there, that will actually prohibit the developer from being able to sell those properties to third parties without paying our money first, which is really what we're kind of worried about. We're worried about a private certifier providing OC and then the developer going on there and on selling those properties to third parties. If that can be prohibited, I think we'll provide ourselves with that security, and we still assist the developer in rectifying the current, I suppose, cash flow issue that potentially may be out there. and we protect ourselves at the same time.
Councillor Zeta, so I believe you're indicating, unless I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, that the item be deferred for legal advice, as you've stated?
Deferred for, look, we need deferred for legal advice regarding the council's ability. Sorry?
So, well, I can ask that question. Yeah.
I don't know how much the legal advice will be, but
No. Well, let's.
Legal advice.
Well, okay. So you, as the seconder, does the mover accept the possibility of the motion being ordered to deferral to seek that legal advice? Councillor Garrow.
Mr. Mayor, the addendum that's been proposed, I don't have a problem with that, but at the end of the day, I'm satisfied that the risk that council's addressing has been mitigated. And by virtue of that and the council's reports, I'm satisfied around that issue. What's awkward here is the fact that there's no policy, right? And it's okay for former Holroyd councillors to go up and promote their position, but for all the time that they've been on the previous council, there was no policy created in order to address these problems. Rather than defer. Look, and if quite frankly, I felt like if you listen to the tone of the conversation around the table, obviously the recommendation is not getting up and someone will move an amendment. But at the end of the day, what you need is a policy here, right? So there needs to be two motions moved. One, in order to address the request, if it gets supported or it doesn't. And on the second hand is there needs to be a report back to the chamber to create a policy around this issue. They're the two matters that need to be addressed. In the meantime, if council wishes to defer this to go down this track, I don't mind supporting that, but it's a long way around the table to do it. I don't mind, if that goes out the door, big deal, but we need a policy.
5 minutes?
To finish up, and then I was going to go back to the General Manager.
At the end of the day, a number of questions being put forward as to what is the benefit to council. Well, at the end of the day, council needs to understand what its position is in terms of obtaining potentially a caveat on in this circumstance, so we know whether this is an option available to us. Because if our issue is about protecting council and securitising the actual Section 94 contributions to make sure that we get them, if this is an option for us which minimises our risk, why should we not get advice to confirm whether that we can actually do this in order to protect ourselves and also assist the developer? We're not about simply saying, look, no, we don't want to consider any other options. Well, this potentially might be an option for us to get additional security for us, and also assist with the request that's been put forward to us. So at the very minimum, if we can at least get that advice, we can then make a decision when it comes back next time around.
Before, I'd like to hand over to the General Manager for comment.
Mr. Mayor, just responding to Councillor Garrard's comments, the policy position is established in the Holroyd Contributions Plan 2013, which says that when a Section 94 payment is deferred, a bank guarantee is required. So that's the policy position that we're working on at the moment. But I'll remind you also that the resolution on the Centenary Road Vinnie's proposal, the second part of that resolution actually requires a report on how Section 94 contributions are managed across the three former councils to come back to council. So that report you've requested is coming back anyway.
Councillor Grove, I'm more than happy to ask to take questions, but well, both yourself, Councillor Hammett, and Councillor Sarkis have spoken, so.
I'm quite happy to go after the questions, provided they're substantive questions and not bullshit argument questions.
And to the point. So I'll go Councillor Hammett and then Councillor Sarkis. Councillor Hammett.
I'll make it succinct. I understand that most people want to go and watch the footy. Couldn't give a stuff about football, but I will make it succinct. So is it true that it will cost us about $4,000 in administrative costs? And also, what will it cost us in legal advice? I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Govers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the officers in putting the report together have estimated that to follow this matter up, they believe it would be in the realm of $4,000. In terms of receiving the legal advice, I'd have to take that on notice. For the particular matter, we'd have to get a cost estimate.
I've got councillor Sarkis.
Yes, Mr Mayor, first question was, well, are they two separate motions that are being moved, or is one replacing the other?
My take, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the mover and the second, that no, it's just basically the council defers the report subject to legal advice being sought to place a caveat on the property as security.
Right, so the first paragraph is knocked off?
Correct.
Okay. Can I ask for that advice by the mover, that it be a general question, so it's not pertinent to this site alone, but a general question, so that in future, if we have a similar scenario, the advice that we get would cover anything of this nature. And the reason is we don't want to be paying for this advice 5 times. If we get it once, we should be able to apply it to, 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever number of applications we may get. So, and no doubt it will be a part of our future policy.
And that's what's going to be...
They could come back in the report that the general manager indicated, but councillor Garrard, do you accept that as a suggestion to the motion?
Yeah, fine.
Councillor Zeta? Thank you. I have councillor Campbell, then councillor Wang. Oh, sorry, my apologies, councillor Grove, then councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Did councillor Zeta grab a seconder for his amendment?
He got the mover to accept.
Not a problem. Look, I would simply ask, and I don't think we need to throw this in the motion. I think if the matter is deferred, I would be asking that officers at least ask the applicant to justify this request. And by justify, I mean make the economic case as to why this is necessary, why this fits into your business model and you can't do it. This council has considered hardship applications before. We don't want to impede development. I certainly look at what the current consent is for, and I think to myself that's a significantly it's either in line or less than what what could be Wentworthville's future part of its gateway decision, and I would be keen to get on with the refreshing of this site. So that would be my request. I would also just make comment by way of the Holroyd plan. The Holroyd Developer Contributions Plan was put in place in mid to late 2013. It has the more recent developments of this site of this scale have only come on recently. When comparing to other councils, I'd simply point out that the Holroyd Section 94 contribution plan is the most expensive plan in all of Cumberland. It raised more money than the Section 94 or lack thereof plans raised in the other LGAs, and that might be an issue in finding liquidity for the applicant. But I would need the applicant to justify that. And were they to do that, I would also ask that council have someone with an external set of expertise to look that over and evaluate the credibility of their claims in support of it. I'm not against granting this concession, but they do need to justify why that should happen. And on the information in this report tonight, I can't do that.
Well,
Please, Mr. Mayor. My point of order relates to the amendment. I believe that it's substantially and distinctly different.
Sorry for the confusion. The original motion has been withdrawn, that section there, and the motion now is the council defers the request subject to legal advice being sought to place a caveat over the property as security.
And if that's voted against, what happens to the original motion? It has to be re-put.
We're back to council.
It has to be put again.
Yes, yes. Well, I've had a call for the motion to be put. I don't need a second for the... I've had a call that the motion be put as per the code of meeting practice. All those in favour? Against? Show of hands. All those in favour? Councillor Zareka, Councillor Rami, Councillor Zeta, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Sarkis. Those against? Councillor Grove, Councillor Elmore, Councillor Wong, Councillor Lake, Councillor Hamid, Councillor Christou, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Cummings. Declare that lost. I have online in my next speakers, I have Councillor Campbell, then Councillor Wong. Councillor Elmore, you've already spoken, so you can only ask the question, but I'm going to go through in order. And then I have Councillor Rami. Okay, all right. It's there on the board, Councillor Lake. Okay, we clear? Councillor Campbell.
I'd like to move an amendment, Mr Mayor, that council reject the request to waive bank guarantee, etc. Why not? Oh, all right, okay. Well, I won't. I'll withdraw that, and I'll just speak against the motion as it is there, and I'm speaking against it because no.
We're making it difficult tonight, people. Councillors, thank you. Councillor Campbell has the floor.
I'm ready to proceed, Mr Mayor, if everyone else is. Thank you. I'm speaking against the motion as it stands now because I'm against the original motion, therefore I'm against as it is amended. I think there have been some unnecessary complications to this matter. So why do we have Section 94 contributions at all? They're there because to fund infrastructure which is due to the population increase that a developer wants to impose upon a particular area. It recognises that increased population affects infrastructure and the provision of services. The idea of not even having a bank guarantee transfers risk onto council, which would otherwise be borne by the developer, and that's of no benefit to the community. It's a greater security to the community if the risk remains with the developer. And if the developer is unable to pay for the contribution and is unable to persuade a bank to give a guarantee, then what are they doing in the business? When they are calculating the costs of proceeding with the development, they should take into account the cost of the Section 94 contribution. They do not, I assume, I might be wrong here, but I assume that the developer does not get a bank guarantee or does not waive a bank guarantee in relation to payments for the pouring of concrete, for electrical work, plumbing work and so on within the building. So why should the payment to the council be any different? Money has to be paid. It is part of the cost of development. And I just want to say something quickly about an argument that Councillor Zeta put, a fallacious argument, that if you accept a late payment, assuming inflation, there's not a real lot of inflation around these days, but even if there were, if over a period of time, for example, over a number of years, inflation adds up to 10% and therefore you get 10% higher amount on the amount owing, are you 10% better off? Of course not, because the value of money is depreciated by 10% in that time. It doesn't make any difference to the value of the money that you collect.
Referred to your statement, Councillor Zeta, yes.
Mr Mayor, inflation at the present time is between 2 to 3%. Our return on our term deposits, I believe, is around 2 to 3%. So at the end of the day, if those funds were received by council and placed into a term deposit, we wouldn't be any worse off. That was the reason I made that comment, on the basis that the increase in the amount that we would receive would be equivalent to the interest that we would receive on that money.
I believe you made your point, Councillor Zeta. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll just round off now.
Thank you, Councillor Camp.
I still maintain that if you watch inflation attack your savings, for example, you're no better off because of what inflation is doing to you. The value of money depreciates with inflation. All right, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just make it short. I'll echo with some of my councillors on this side that my concern is that this is a commercial business. A commercial developer who can't put up $30,000 or $300,000 while developing what I'll imagine this will probably be an over $10 million development. So I just can't see why would council take on this risk while we won't defer rent payment for small business in our area, while we won't defer payments for people in harsh financial situation. Well, do we have policy for deferring rents for small business then? For small.
Referred to in the Act as well. I'm happy to let
Read your policy.
Yeah, Councillor Wong has the call.
Yeah, but okay, nevertheless, I just don't see why we should be doing this for just to assist a developer developing our local area.
Councillor Wong, you have a question, Councillor Elmore?
Quick question, Mr. Mayor. This council seems to go off track in all sorts of different directions. And my question is, this particular application, before the development can commence, council needs to issue a construction certificate. So, if we defer this matter to get legal opinion, it's got to come back to council again, and then it's got to go to the Cumberland Independent Hearing and Assessment Panel before the.
I believe if that part of it can be done under delegation by the officers.
So I'm not into mucking people around, you know. So if we continue.
You made, I think. What is your question?
So this could defer this.
It will obviously, I agree, and I'll answer your question. It'll obviously delay the process and possibly by months. Thank you, Councillor Elmore. Councillor Zareka,
just a quick question. Isn't Section 94 contributions a charge on the land?
I didn't hear.
Does it not move with the land?
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
If it's a charge on the land, we don't need a caveat.
Mr. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Davis, you've heard the question. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the development levy is for that particular development on that site. So it does stay with that site, but only for that development.
Question, if you've got 30 units on that site and you increase it to 40, the Section 94 is going to increase by another 10 units, correct? Depending on whether it's a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom, will also depend on what that levy will be. That's correct.
Councillor, Mr. Davis, you concur with that?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Any change, any amendment to the approved plans would require a modification of consent, and the contributions would be adjusted.
Mayor, I'll second Councillor Elmore's motion.
Well, I don't need a second. I do have a call that the motion be put. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Council, you have a motion before you. Move Councillor Garrard, second, and Councillor Zeta. All those in favour? It's a planning matter, so I'll call for a division. So we have Councillor Rami, Councillor Grove, Councillor Zeta, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Sarkis, and Councillor Zareka. Those against? I have Councillor Elmore, Councillor Wong, Councillor Lake, Councillor Hamid, Councillor Christou, Councillor Campbell, and Councillor Cummings. I declare that lost. Council. I'm in the hands of council. No. Yeah.
We renege all Section 94 payments and we give him a library book as well.
I'll take that. That council has indicated they are happy with the current Section 94 plan for that part of the LGA, and I'll move on. Council, the next item is 103. Well, I've got Councillor Zareka and then Councillor Elmore. Is there any discussion? No discussion. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. We do, sorry. I'll put it. All those in favour? I'm calling it unanimous. Thank you. Council... Yeah, 106. Councillor Sarkis, you indicated that
The recommendation by council is that council will write to the Minister of Planning requesting a deferral of the commencement of the low-rise medium-density housing code within Cumberland until a new housing strategy and draft Cumberland Comprehensive Local Environmental Plan is completed, consistent with the deferral granted to other councils. And my question first, Mr. Mayor, is I'm under the impression other councils have actually had these new planning laws that are being introduced on the 6th of July actually cut from their council areas, like Ryde, like I think Canterbury Bankstown. It started off with 2, but I believe there was another 3 or 4 that have been added onto that list. Can I just have that confirmed?
Mr. General Manager. Oh, Mr. Davis. Yeah, Mr. General Manager.
I think that it's been deferred, not stopped altogether. So the implementation of those provisions in those council areas has been deferred.
I'll move the recommendation.
No, hang on. Well,
we haven't got a mover yet, so you can't.
No. Councillor Sarkis does have the floor, and yeah, correct. I think it has been, just to clarify the question. I believe it's for 1 year.
Yes.
So the councillors that have been, councils that have been granted a deferral for 1 year.
And that's been confirmed that it's been deferred for 1 year, not. Okay. Well then, provided that this motion falls into line with that, I'll move this motion.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Elmore. Further discussion? Councillor Hammond, and then Councillor Rami. Councillor Hammond?
That was on since before.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Councillor Rami, do you wish to?
Just a quick correction after reading the report. There's reference in the report, and I'm happy for the officers to correct me if I am wrong, but it refers to R2, the frontage being 12 metres, like conclusively. That's actually incorrect, because if you actually read the SEP in detail, it can only be 12 metres if you've got another point of access, i.e. rear lane or rear access. Otherwise, it falls back to 15 metres. So,
I believe rear or corner block.
Cool. Yeah. So it's not actually 12. It actually goes back to what we've got.
Yeah, if you have a
on a normal block.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Rami. I believe you're correct.
Mayor, if you have a look at the manor houses or terraces that they're referring to, you're talking about now a block on a corner block where we have a front setback of 6 metres or whatever it is in that street. If it's more, it's more, and a side setback of 4 metres, and the absolute max potential of an R2 or R3 zone is to put a duplex there. This allows them to have four dwellings on that corner, right? 4 dwellings. And parking is not a consideration with the actual development. And at the moment, the worst possible locations we have in our LGA with parking is any corner, because if you've got a duplex there, both dwellings are parking 3 or 4 cars on the street.
Make your point.
Speaking in favour of the motion, or?
No, he moved the recommendation, councillor Elmore, and you seconded it. So is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Councillor
Or if
Gray.
he's going where I think he's going, I'll speak against. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No further discussion. Right of reply, councillor Sarkis? No. Thank you. I'll put it then. All those in favour? I need a call. Well, we'll make it a call. All those in favour? Unanimously. Thank you. Council notice of motion, councillor Hamid, and I believe councillor Elmore is seconding this. Thank you. Yes, that's correct. So before we start discussion,
Deputy Lord Mayor of Parramatta in the room as well. Yes, she is.
councillor Hamid.
Are we supposed to bow?
Councillor Hamid.
So the Granville train disaster occurred on Tuesday the 18th of January 1977. It remains the worst rail disaster in Australian history. 83 people died, more than 213 were injured, and many more were affected in other ways. A community group associated with the Granville train disaster have been coordinating an annual memorial service in Granville since that time. Over the years, support has been provided by the former City of Parramatta Council. After the amalgamation, the Granville Train Disaster Association approached Cumberland Council requesting support for the delivery of the 40th anniversary memorial service held on the 18th of January 2017. Council worked with the group to plan and deliver the service, which was attended by the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, Premier Mike Baird and Governor of New South Wales David Hurley. The Granville Train Disaster Association submitted a community events grant application and was successful with their application to receive $10,000 to assist with the funding for the 2019 memorial service. The association has now approached me and Councillor Elmore to request ongoing support from Council and are seeking that Council take a lead role in organising the event to ensure its ongoing sustainability as the group is ageing and requires a higher level of Council support. Given that the event is of national significance as the worst rail disaster in Australia's history, I seek Council support with this notice of motion.
Thank you, councillor Hamid. Councillor Zareka, do you wish to speak? No. Councillor Elmore.
I'll speak briefly, Mr. Mayor. This is another situation where we've got to write what the administrator did when Cumberland Council was under administration. And I've got a quote from Wikipedia here that we should correct this too. It says Granville Memorial Site would now fall under the control of the newly formed Cumberland Council. As Parramatta Council, who had been the major supporter of the event for some 39 years, financing, supply and staff to assist each year, Cumberland Council decided that the memorial service would not be an event under the new management and advised the Granville Train Disaster Association, who are a collection of volunteers, to apply for a council events grant if they wish the annual service to continue. So, as you know, Mr. Mayor, Parramatta Council has supported this event for many, many years. It's only because the memorial fell on Cumberland's side of the train line of the bridge, where the actual bridge fell and killed those 84 people. The other side where Parramatta Council has, that's a junkyard or something. I think it's a scrapyard or a wrecking yard or something. During the amalgamation, the memorial fell within Cumberland Council. I think it's Cumberland Council's responsibility to continue this service and assist and assist the Granville Train Disaster Association, because they're ageing. It was a long time ago now. It was 41 years ago, and that's what councils do. You know, they help out with events. You know, we've got an events committee. They know how to close roads. They know how to apply to apply for police. They know how to set up marquees. They know how to set up sound equipment. So it's not a really big task for council. And I also support that we should write to Parliamentary Council and ask them for some assistance, because I've spoken to a few Parliamentary Councils, and they're quite willing to provide some assistance. So it's a matter of getting this right again. Get the event back in control of Parliamentary Council, so Parliamentary Council can provide the event. There's also, over time, people have said, oh, you know, it's been a long time, it's been 40 years, you know, why doesn't the Granville Train Disaster Association only celebrate it every 5 years or 10 years or something? It doesn't really matter what we think. It's what the survivors and the family survivors think. If they think it's important to celebrate every year, council should support them with that.
Thank you, Councillor Elmore. Councillor Zareka.
Best thing you've said all week.
Mr Mayor, I would have thought this was an inherent purpose anyway, inherent responsibility. Last year, myself and yourself and Councillor Rami attended, and I honestly thought it was council's project, all the council staff for that. Little did I know that it was actually being run by an association. So for $10,000 or slightly more than that for next year, I don't think it's too much to bear, and I'd be supporting the motion.
Councillor Zareka. Councillor Saab.
Mr Mayor, although I'd wholeheartedly support this motion, I'd also ask that the mover and seconder consider writing to the state member seeking support from state. And the reason I say that is, as much as we're here to support the community, and we'll always be here to support the community, what happened no doubt is tragic, but it was a failure of the state government. And so the state government, in its infrastructure, should be somewhat responsible in their doings, and I think that they should be contributing to this on a yearly basis, not just council. So I'm suggesting that we still take charge, but also seek assistance from state government in this, because again, this is under their jurisdiction. State railways are under state government, and the roads back then were not a council road. It was actually no. It's I'm asking them to consider adding this.
Ask Councillor Sarkis.
Added.
Councillor Hamad, do you accept that addition to your?
Look, at this stage, I don't think I can accept that.
So, at the original motion, with my amendment, that we seek extra support
So
from the
state.
Yeah, from the state member. Not from the member herself, but from.
I'm more than happy to write to the Premier, whichever Premier it may be.
Mr Mayor, in seeking that, we would write to the local state member and also to the Premier, because it's got to go to, you know, it is a matter of state significance.
Do you wish to accept that addition?
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Thank you. Councillor Elmore, do you?
I know it's already spoken about this, and I'm quite aware of council's rules in relation to meeting procedures. But the state member's already written to council, and the federal member for Parramatta has written to council, and also the member for out Penrith Way, member for Lindsay, has written to council. Well, you've probably seen those letters, Mr Mayor, and I understand that State Rail do provide some sort of assistance with the ceremony, with providing some support. But if I think the additional of 0.4 is probably superfluous, but if you want to add that, I don't have any problem with it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Zareka.
Amendment, if I may, Councillor Sarkis.
They've accepted that as an addition.
Can we also write that we'd seek funding from the state government?
I thought that support would be.
Yeah. Financial support, yeah. Okay. No, it wasn't written.
Thank you. I think we've got a clear picture. Any further discussion?
Maybe that it be a grant? You know?
I think we'll just see what we get
Sure.
back, councillor Sarkis. Right of reply, councillor Hammond?
All good.
I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Declare the meeting closed at 7:37. Thank you.